Hi everyone, my name is Neilda.
I'm Sarah.
And we are here with this week's episode of EmpowHER VR, where we bring you the latest of XR and members of the community. We also talk about design, neuroscience, and education as well. So this week we have a very special guest. Her name is Azine Davoudzadeh, and she is a dynamic educator, creator, and thought leader. She is an educator at the San Ramon District and has been teaching for over a decade. She is also the founder of XRedu. Azine has been researching and using VR in her classroom since 2016 and has taught intro to VR classes for the Imagineering Program in San Ramon. So Azine, we're really curious about how you got into XR and what actually inspired you to apply this into the classrooms.
Sure. Well, I've been an educator for many years, and I'm always looking for innovative ways of learning just because of student engagement. And when I first tried VR myself, I immediately thought of my students and I thought, they should try this. This is going to change education, because just the immersive aspect of it and an experience type of learning is so much more powerful. And so that's sort of where it began, is when I first tried it myself, and then I started applying.
What did you try? Can you tell us?
Oh,
do you remember?
I do remember. It was a surfing experience, and I used the Gear VR. I mean, not even really a high end, but it was still very impactful. So it was like I felt like I was surfing basically in the experience.
I think I may have tried that experience before, where they give you a surfing lesson. Is
that
it?
Yeah, I think so. Well, it was through YouTube 360, so I don't know if that's the same one, but yeah, it was amazing. Like it was basically pro surfers as well, and you were on the wave, or it felt like you were on the wave. So.
And from that, how's been your process to actually incorporate it into classrooms? Can you tell us more?
Sure. So that's the same time when I started going back to school and getting my master's degree, and it came time to think about a topic to research. And to me, the best thing to do was to take that VR and research it in my classroom. And so I started implementing interventions that I created from existing VR applications out there, and kind of pieced it together and created curriculum basically. And then from that, I created a study and a research method, and then I went ahead and implemented it and tried it in my classroom. So that's just one way.
What did you discover?
Well, I discovered a lot of things, but basically,
read your paper.
One thing, you can read my paper online, but basically I wanted to inspire young girls to get into tech careers, and I knew that VR might be the vehicle to do that. And it showed to be true that after using VR, more females were inclined to try to go into tech careers.
That's amazing.
That's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
So you have XRedu, which is a very new venture for you. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what got you to create it?
Sure. So XRedu is basically a company that tries to research, organize, and also build products, XR tools for education, because we know how important it is. And I think coming from a teacher, since I'm a teacher myself in the classroom, it's more valuable because we know what we need, we know what works, especially in a classroom dynamic. So that's why I built this company, because there is nothing like it out there that me as a teacher could use. And so I said, okay, I'll create it myself and see what happens. So that's how this venture sort of took off.
And I know that you're also creating an application for it as well. Can you tell us more about that too?
Absolutely. So one of my gripes as a teacher is basically teaching content and having it accessible to the students, because as a teacher I have to vet a lot of different resources, right? Videos, I use inquiry-based teaching, and all this stuff I have to collect and give to my students. But I thought it would be more empowering if the students had it within an application. So my team and I, we created, and you can see in the background, an app that basically works with the existing textbook that I teach out of. And what it does is you scroll over specific images in the textbook, and they have pop-ups. And the pop-ups have either text or questions, and we're still in beta phases. So, and then basically from there, it'll link to a video and then to questions.
Can we try it out?
Yeah, you can try it out, definitely.
Cool. What book are we reading?
So this is U.S. history, 8th grade.
I didn't grow up in the U.S. So
oh, so this might be good.
I might learn some new things.
Yeah, so basically, hold on a second. So I'm going to go back to the main screen. So for example, if you want, you have to find the page number that corresponds, and then when you click on it, it should, if you want to use that.
Let's see, images on page 269. Yes. Okay. Is there a specific? There we go. Search. Oh, story. You'll use a story to learn about the life of African. This is actually very funny to see like a thing that's on there and not on there up here. Okay, and now can I see the next thing? I have a little arrow here.
There's the
I'm sure the
yeah,
kids
the pink arrow
are
is
more
next.
like,
yeah.
and I press it. Doesn't like. Do you need to? Oh, here we go. And I see videos. Yeah, so I can. After I press it, I can. There's links to either questions or videos. Cool. Yeah, there's definitely that novelty effect of like, wait, what?
Yeah, and I already tested it with a beta, like a small group of students, and some of my students were just saying that it made about 80% of them who tried it said that it made learning more fun and engaging, and that they were more excited about reading the book.
Were they able to retain more information using this app too?
So that's a great question, and that's basically my next step. We just produced this in a couple of months at the end of the school year. So for our next phase, I did definitely test them on the unit, but I'm still analyzing the data to see whether it made a difference. But we're going to have a larger sample in the fall because we're going to build out more chapters, and then I'll be able to answer that question for you.
Yeah. Work in progress, but this is really exciting.
Yeah.
So, I'm very curious about like the students' behavior, and you know, from a neuroscience perspective, kids don't have as much of a developed prefrontal cortex, which makes it much harder for them to delay gratification, right? And some of the things you see in classrooms is no cell phones allowed, right? Because if you give them a cell phone in their hand, they might be even more distracted. So is there any ways that you're sort of mitigating that, or how do you address that?
That's a great question, and as a matter of fact, at our school, we do have a no cell phone policy, but not unless the teacher is asking for it, and it's in a very directed way. Partially, to answer your question, I use cell phones for educational purposes to mitigate that problem, because I know my students are thinking about their cell phone, even when they're sitting there. They're like, who texted me, Snapchat, you know what I mean? And so when I let them use this, because we're not normally letting them use it, it's like it becomes a lot more engaging, and they really do respect what I'm asking them. Like, they don't go off the beaten path and start looking at other things. They really do what I'm asking for them to do with their cell phones. So in some way, I think having educational applications that work and are exciting could help with that.
Or so possibly just even trusting them, right? There's a lot of research about how much influence a teacher's belief in a student will impact their behavior. And sometimes if you treat them like kids, they will be even less likely to grow up, right?
So, yeah, I don't.
Perspective.
No, definitely. I think that I trust my kids, and I think that's why that they deliver. And I sort of see them as part of the solution as well. I've even asked my students, you know, tell me how this app could be better. Like, you guys are the experts.
You have a bunch of beta testers. That's great.
I mean,
perfect.
Yeah. So.
And did you get any interesting responses from them? Like any good suggestions?
Yeah, a lot of kids, a lot of positive responses, and a lot of them were saying, "Are you going to build them for the other chapters? What about the rest of the chapters?" And then I have a very large number of Apple users. Right now it's developed for Android.
Right.
So our next step is to develop it for Apple so that a bigger sample size could use it.
Is there any type, I can imagine that maybe, you know, some kids don't come from such great socioeconomical backgrounds and maybe don't even have a smart or good enough cell phone. Is that something you're sort of thinking about, how you can incorporate that?
Great question. As a teacher, equity is always number one on our list. And as a matter of fact, before I run any of these tests, what I do is I do a survey to see how many of my students actually have cell phones. And quite a few of them may not. So what I'm looking to do is to buy and get grants in order to purchase like a classroom set of like 10 phones or whatever, so that we can, you know, solve that issue. That's a great question.
Yeah, important.
I was about to ask the exact same one in regards to education equity.
Yeah.
So that's really great that you're doing that as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
I know you have a few announcements to make, a few events actually. There's ISTE and there's also your XRedu challenge coming up. So can you tell us a little bit more about what those events are and get us excited?
Sure. Yeah. I'm super excited. I hope everybody is as well. So at the end of the month, I'm one of the featured educators at the Unity booth, and they're also working with Vives and HTC. And basically, it's the ISTE conference. It's in Chicago. Website. So we're going to be booth 2024. And if anybody's at the ISTE conference, fellow educators, technologists, please stop by and visit us. I'll be there till the 27th of this month. So,
awesome. And then the XRedu challenge, that was, yes, that one is at the end of this July.
Right.
Okay.
So the other thing I'm really excited about, so if you know any developers out there, I really encourage you to sign up. We're at early bird pricing right now. But basically, an XRedu challenge is getting technologists and educators and even students together to team up to build apps either on mobile, on VR, mostly like immersive tech. It could be augmented reality. But we want to get these small teams together to come together on a weekend and build little prototypes of what could work in a classroom, and then hopefully have teachers on the team who could take it back to their classroom and maybe do a little bit of testing with it and see if it works. So that's just for everybody out there. It's July 27th through 29th, and we've been sponsored by Microsoft and Samsung. So it's at the Microsoft Reactor space in San Francisco.
Cool. Are they going to be giving anything except for the space? Or are they like sponsoring, you know, is there a winner? Is it like a hackathon thing?
It is. There's going to be winners. There's lots of categories like user-friendly, gamified learning, you know, first place. So they're going to have mixed reality headsets on site to use. There's a chance that HTC is going to also give out prizes. So we're still working on it, but we're cooking up some good prizes. Maybe some headsets in the works.
I always enjoy hackathons just because it's not just building an app in a very short span of time. You're also meeting a lot of really talented people.
Yes.
And very passionate ones too. So
yeah,
it's a really great opportunity.
Yes, me and Neilda connected in a
two-day
hackathon.
Great. We did.
Maybe you should come to the hackathon actually.
Yeah.
Love to see you there.
So our final question for you, are there any people or organizations or companies that you'd love to get in contact with to further your cause?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, I've been wanting to connect with Oculus for a long time. I think that I really like their product, and I think especially like Oculus Go can be very user-friendly in the classroom. So if there's anyone at Oculus, and likewise Google, I know they have the Google Expeditions and the Daydream, which are very educational based. So anyone in those two companies, I'd love to connect with you.
Yeah, that's great. Let's hope they reach out. And I guess thanks for being here. It was very educational. And
good.
I'm very, personally, I'm very excited to see this tech spread out, not only in our little bubble, but also to the next generation.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious what will come of this.
Yeah. And if any of you are interested in contacting Azine, you could see her email, azined@gmail.com.
And if any one of you want to be on this show, have a passion about VR, something you're working on, we would love to hear from you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. Azine, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.